an end, unfortunately. She will be leaving us, the agency, at the end of the month. And my sincere hope is that she will somehow be able to be recruited again by the agency after she has made all her career somewhere else, and she will come back in a leading position. Not immediately, because there are so many other good things to do outside in the world. As you know, Kajsa has been heavily involved in supporting Catherine in her work as the gender focal point. And I'll ask Catherine to introduce Kajsa, although we all know her, but to tell us what she has done. And after that, Kajsa will give us an overview.
Really seems like yesterday, but most of you don't know that Kajsa, Naomi will remember, that Kajsa actually joined us in, I can't remember what year, as an intern. 2005. She originally started with us as an intern, and one of her first assignments was to write the internship policy. So when you see them, we have an intern who actually wrote the policy herself. Anyway, we were very happy that the U.S. government was generous enough to support Kajsa for quite a while. Part of it came out of MTHR funding as well, but most of it was done by the U.S. State Department, who saw in Kajsa the potential that we all see, but also saw the need for giving some financial support and some human support to the work that we're doing in gender. So I'm thankful to Kajsa, but I'm also thankful to the U.S. government for what they have done. Kajsa's been a busy lady since she's been here. I'll let her tell you exactly everything that she's been up to. There have been the Daughters' Days, or Tag. There have been International Women's Day, and also you would have seen Kajsa being very involved in the MTHR stands for the General Conference. You have seen probably 2 brochures on women. Some of you are profiled in there, and Kajsa has been responsible for pulling those all together as well. So she's been a great asset to the gender cause. She's been a great asset to MTHR in general and to the agency. So we are sorry to see her go, but it is time for her to move forward in her career. She was working on that as late as this morning. She is in the running for an extremely competitive UN program, and I'll let you say what that's all about. But she had her written test about a month ago in December, and this morning she had her oral exam. It's kind of like going into the U.S. Foreign Service. It's grueling, but she seems to have survived and is cheerful enough to come and talk to us today. But so she's moving on to new career paths, and I think that's great for her. So that's it.
Okay, so I would suggest Kajsa, we start, and after we are done, it's not finished yet. We will have a celebration because we have 2 reasons to celebrate, and I will tell you later. So please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I was, as you can tell, quite stressed this morning, so I haven't put together a formal presentation or anything. But what I did do was go back through my calendar and kind of look at the different events and meetings I've participated in the last 2.5 years. And it's actually really interesting to see that I've actually had a pretty good balance between HR and gender. So I'm just going to kind of go through a bit of a timeline to kind of illustrate what my time here encompassed. And so as Catherine said, I joined in September 2009, and it was actually the week of the General Conference. No one was really around, and it was, kind of my week of readjusting back to Vienna and finding my feet again. So I unfortunately didn't participate in the General Conference in 2009, but have enjoyed it since. But basically, when I started, I was working really closely with Luana, who some of you might remember was our intern at the time. And she really helped to get me up to speed with what the agency was doing in terms of gender, what it meant to, or what we interpreted as gender mainstreaming, working with the different groups in the agency that work on gender issues, the Department of Focal Point. At the time, there was the Joint Advisory Council, Joint Advisory Committee, Subcommittee for Gender Concerns. and all these different parties. So I was kind of negotiating my way around these and trying to figure out what it all meant. So that took some time to adjust and to kind of find my role and what my relationships were with different people. And in March 2010, actually, Women in Nuclear had a booth, and HR had a booth as well, and so I went in the capacity of recruitment, but it had kind of started because of the conversations that we had in Women in Nuclear. So that was my first real kind of professional assignment as, reflecting the human resource team and representing the agency. So that was a really exciting time for me. And most of you know my dad was actually working at the time in Abu Dhabi, so it was kind of this very funny father-daughter kind of work relationship that we somehow have maintained over several years, even though I didn't study anything technical at all. And I've still kind of followed him on his nuclear path. And so then, starting in that summer of 2010, the HR team started working on our new branding of HR, and this is coming up with the HR logo and redesigning all of our brochures and things like that. So we had actually started that as early as, I think it was June 2010 to start our preparations for our HR booth at the General Conference. And at this time, we had kind of taken the older women's brochure and just kind of updated its look, but not so much of the content at that point in time. So we had the General Conference. And then that November, the U.S. Brookhaven invited me to participate in another recruitment mission in Orlando, Florida, at the Society of Women Engineers. So I went there for several days and did that, and it was a really interesting opportunity. It was really a lot of young women in sciences. There weren't so many women who were ready for senior level positions, so there was a lot of interest from young people, a lot of recent graduates or students who would be graduating in the future. So I hope at least that's a positive sign and hopefully a trend for the future. In March of 2011, we had the 100-year celebration of International Women's Day, which was a huge undertaking because it was actually the first time that we had tried to celebrate for the entire VIC instead of just for the IAEA. So I was in contact with the focal points from the other organizations. We put together the entire day. Most of you probably remember it. We had a really fun poster display. So we had this really fun poster display highlighting the contributions of women from all different areas of not only the IAEA, but the VIC in general. We included medical, we included the women in security, from all over the commissary, and CCBCO and UNODC also contributed, and they put together this display as well. So it was a really nice, successful, and well-attended event, which was really exciting. And we also had messages from each of the DGs from all of the organizations, which was also one of the first times we managed to do so. Even though two of the statements had to come by video conference, or video pre-recorded. But still, it was a great step forward for this kind of video collaboration between all of us, so that was really great. In April 2011, I was invited to speak at Webster University. So one of the focal points and I from UNIDO, we went to one of the master's level courses at Webster University, and we both gave presentations on what it meant to do gender mainstreaming in the UN. And it was really interesting. And it was really interesting, especially to be outside of the UN and to hear what the questions were and what the interpretations were of people who don't work inside the system. And so there was a lot of clarification that needed to be made, and they were really very interested. They were interested and they were curious and wondering what all of this meant. And it was good for us as well because my counterpart, Helena, at the time, it was really interesting for us because we got to share what our experiences were for her at UNIDO and for me here. So we got to share, what worked for both of continued our relationship in the future as well. Then in May 2011, we had what we called a reverse recruitment mission, and we had been approached by the Dutch mission, and what they wanted to do was select candidates in advance who they think would be appropriate candidates to eventually apply to the IAEA, and give them a day and a half long tour of what it meant to work at the IAEA, what the different departments did for work, where they could see themselves best fitting, and then we also arranged for them to have a separate session with the HR officers so they could tailor their personal history forms the right way, figure out which jobs they should be applying for, and we did the same as well. We had a group of students who were all, qualified for internships, and we had a separate session for them as well, and I think it was a really successful event. It was really interesting. They really enjoyed it, and we got a lot of positive feedback from it. It's something that the Dutch mission paid for, so it's unfortunately something that can only be replicated by member states who are willing to fund something like this. But we got at least one intern who came because of this program, and several applications from some of the other candidates as well. Let's see. In June 2011, I went with Catherine and Naomi and we did a joint presentation at the Women's Career Network. And that had been started basically because Women in Nuclear had connected with the Women's Career Network, and one of the co-presidents of the Women's Career Network had come on the WIN retreat earlier, so we kind of built this relationship. So that was interesting because that gave us an outlet to talk to a different kind of professional women who were already in Vienna and curious about how to get into the IAEA or to the UN. So that was also a really good opportunity. And again, summertime, so that meant we were starting again the updates with all the brochures. And this is when we did the complete overhaul of the Women at IAEA brochure. So we did all new profiles, all new photo shoots, all new content, everything. We redesigned the Resources for Women webpage. We even redesigned the HR front page to have a message from the focal points for gender, and we really started promoting the opportunities for women and really highlighting the different kinds of women who work here and what the different opportunities are. So that was, for me, a really fun general conference because I was really excited to be sharing this brochure with everyone, and we were reporting to the board that year, and so it was a really busy time for gender and for reporting. And because of the report that we had written, some members of Women in Nuclear thought that it wasn't, I forget how it was said, it wasn't enough progress. People had wanted to see more progress. And so I was invited to give a lunchtime session to talk about what this report really meant and what the numbers really reflected, and were we really making progress in our efforts to recruit more women, or did it really look as bad as people thought it did on paper? And I hope that once it was explained in a bit more detail, I hope that it created a clearer picture and gave people a better idea of where we had started and where we had ended up at that point in time. Let's see. In October of that same year, we had Americans and international organizations in Vienna have a 2-day workshop. And Catherine and Naomi again presented there on HR and how to apply for jobs with the IAEA, particularly for spouses and things like that. We had a separate HR booth to provide information during, the breaks and the lunches and things like that. And I had been invited by the mission to facilitate a breakout session. So in the afternoon on the second day, I got to work with a group of about 15 people who had been in Vienna at any point in time from several months to several years. Age range was, I think, like 23 to over 50. And my role was to facilitate a discussion on what it means to relocate to Vienna if you are single, and the challenges that a person faces, and how to overcome these, and how we can help make that transition smoother for people who are coming in. In October is also when we started preparation for the swap. And the meeting requirements are lacking, and really it's a very long, complicated reporting mechanism. But my other role was to also assess the tool chance of succeeding when we do our reporting. So it was a really unique opportunity to have our own voice in saying, this is what we would like to share when we report, this is how we would like to do it, and so all of that was taken into consideration. And in February, I participated in a 2-day-long video conference with the office in New York, and I think it was 8 other UN entities who had piloted the study. And it was really interesting to hear because a lot of the organizations, surprisingly, face several of the same challenges as us. Not all offices have a full-time phone line. Not all offices have an up-to-date policy for, X, Y, and Z. And not everyone has all the funding that they need. So there are several overlapping problems across the whole system, which actually made me feel a lot better. and another organization who spoke before me, I think it was ILO maybe, they had actually said the same as me, that they wanted to participate in the pilot in order to advocate for more support and more assistance in their treatment programming. So what they have done since then, it's gone through several more stages so that they won't officially take into account the results of the swab until 2013. And basically what they have said is that every organization has 5 years to meet the requirements of the swab. I'm not exactly sure what this means because they've never actually been able to come back and say what will happen if you don't meet the requirements. So I'm not exactly sure where the accountability comes in, but we will definitely be required to do this kind of reporting. It's extremely time consuming. I literally spent 6 straight weeks working just on that, and I mean it's a lot of work, but hopefully the results that come from it will be good because it requires us to look.
Become very good friends, and anyway, I would like to thank Gabi for all what she has done for the IAEA's gender policy, because she's always been supporting women in this house, and what she has done for We IAEA. And with this, Gabi, happy birthday in the name of We IAEA.